The Emerald Knight, Chapter 9. "Hey," Morgan called to the servant carrying the wine. "Is this the good stuff? Because I don't want that. I want whatever the worst bottle you have is, because Clint's a wino and I can't tell the difference." The servant stared at him in disbelief before shrugging and heading out of the room, presumably to bring a different bottle. Clint sighed at Morgan and sank deeper into the water of his private bath until it touched his chin. "Don't give me that look," Morgan warned, but Clint kept the sour expression on his face. "Don't be mean to them," he said after a long pause. "Don't be mean to me!" Morgan smiled, leaning back with one arm resting on the side of the bath and the other unwinding knots from his long dark hair. "Not after what you just made me do." He met Clint's eyes and his voice softened. "She didn't love you." "I know." "Then why did you make me say it?" he asked with venom in his voice. Clint sighed and stared into the water for a few seconds before answering. "I don't know." "It pissed me off." Morgan tinked his fingertips against the tiled floor beside the bath in impatience, waiting on his drink. "I know." Clint brought his hands from the water and pulled the ribbon from his hair, allowing it to flow down his shoulders. "If Orinda finds out, she's gonna set you on fire." Morgan smiled as the servant reappeared, filled the glasses, sat down the bottle, and left. "Thank you," Clint called after him when Morgan said nothing. He took the glass and sipped from it. After a few seconds, he went on. "Orinda hates me." "Orinda's a bitch, like her father." Morgan made a face and took a gulp from the glass. "Those fire fists have tempers to match their names. You shouldn't be trying to run an empire, and you shouldn't be banging someone who's, what, like 280 years younger than you?" "She's not a child." Clint glared at him as if he had poured salt into a wound. "Bitch, you're a child," Morgan countered and smiled at him. When he realized that he had actually hurt his friend, he sighed with his entire torso and said, "Clint, she doesn't hate you. She doesn't care about her parents. She never met them. Because of me." "Well, Soko would have died either way. You didn't chop her up. She bled out because she tried to have a baby in a cabin being watched over by idiots. That one's not on you. And Garen's an idiot, Clint. I lived with him. Someone would have killed him, even if you hadn't. That man had a death wish." "Because of me." "You got a hell of an ego," Morgan smirked. "That's what Orinda said. She said that she was tired of stroking my ego," Clint said, in thought. "So am I. This self-deprecating bullshit brings everybody down. It's annoying." Morgan reached for the bottle to refill his glass. "I know, I'm sorry." He sipped from his glass and finally turned to meet Morgan's gaze. "You don't have to do it if you don't want to." "Yes, I do," Morgan said firmly. "Because you need it and no one else will. No one else can. Look, I'm sorry you're so messed up, but you're not the first guy to do stupid shit for a lover. Or the last. There are people out there, right now, doing stupid shit. Stupid shit happens all the time. Yours just happened to be particularly devastating because you have more power than most people." "I don't want it," Clint said to his empty glass. "I didn't want to curse the entire elven race. Anilla didn't want to be split in half, and Orinda didn't want to be raised by humans. Shit happens." Morgan shrugged and then refilled the drink for him. "I should have listened to you," Clint said, and took a sip. "Everyone should listen to me," Morgan agreed. "Yet almost no one does. I don't know why. I'm very often right." He took a drink and corrected himself. "I'm almost always right." "Shut up." Clint giggled, set his drink on the floor, and dipped under the water. Morgan watched him come back up and start wringing out his hair. "When are you going to ask me to do this again?" Morgan watched him move, apparently unaware that Clem was actually planning on bathing, even though he was the one who told him to do it. Morgan seemed content just to sit in the hot water. "Don't ask me things like that." Clem sighed and his shoulders slumped. "I have a life. I'm running the Draken Academy." Morgan swirled the liquid in his glass. I can't run up here every time you get depressed, because you get depressed like once a week. Can we talk about something else? Clint asked in a small voice. Sure. Morgan took a sip and watched the king rub soap onto a cloth. What? Do you think I'm Bruana's father? Like, blood father? Clint turned to look at him, to read his face. Yes, Morgan said without missing a beat. Oh, Clint said, and it didn't seem to be the answer he wanted. He began to rub the cloth over his face, waded back to the edge, and ducked himself again. Morgan watched him with curiosity. When he emerged, he said, I don't think anyone but you would have Arinda, Clint. She's uppity and she sets the goddamn bed on fire when you have sex. She doesn't do that anymore, and it was a tent. Clint corrected, and pulled himself onto the edge to scrub his body. It was when she first got the stone, and it was difficult to control. Still, that sounds like something you'd only do if you had a death wish, Morgan chuckled. I don't have a death wish, Clint sighed. I wish people would stop saying that. I just don't want her to be like me. Bruana. I don't want her to be anything like me. You don't want her to be strong or fast? Clint, you've literally killed gods. This kid is going to be able to do that while she sets your damn house on fire. Morgan stared up at him. That's why no one can stand to be around you. This shit right here. He had the glass halfway to his lips when a thought hit him, and he stopped to speak it. You didn't say that to Arinda, did you? That you thought you might not be the father. Yes. Clem finished scrubbing himself and hopped back into the tub, splashing Morgan and getting soapy water in his drink. He poured the wine into the tub and refilled the glass. When Clint emerged from the water, he couldn't take his eyes off him. Clint noticed him staring and cocked his head to the side. Sorry, Morgan said. I'm just trying to figure out if it's an act. I feel amazement at the stupidity. You didn't really say that to her. You'd be dead. I didn't think she'd get mad, Clint explained, sitting back against the wall and picking his drink back up. Clint, no one is that stupid. Morgan stared at him as if he were really trying to figure out if he were lying. I didn't think she'd get mad. Clint narrowed his eyes at his drink. You accused her of infidelity and you know how she gets about that shit. Morgan just continued to stare at him. I didn't mean it like that. Why is that everyone's first assumption? Clint took a sip and said, This tastes like a soap. Because that's how babies happen, you inconceivable dumbass, Morgan explained. I thought, Clint explained patiently, that it might be divine intervention. She looks divine. I've never seen another elf that looks like her. You've never seen your reflection? Morgan chuckled. Shouldn't exist, Clint explained. Arinda and I shouldn't be able to have children. We thought we couldn't. We're two different elements. The divine intervention is your dick, chosen one, Morgan laughed. I thought about that. Clint sipped, eyes closed. But it never worked with Xandra. Xandra was a piece of work. Morgan sat his empty glass behind him. Do you know how many drugs she did to keep herself going, to keep that kind of magic? Remember, she cast outside her element. There's no way that that broken body could have supported a baby. And it's a good goddamn thing, because that's one more thing she would have held over you. She probably would have forced you to kill it the first time it pissed her off. I don't kill children, Clint said, quietly. No, you just... Morgan threw up his hands and chided himself. I'm not going to say it. You know how I feel. She's not a child. Clint sighed. And I really wish you'd stop saying that. It's getting on my nerves. Heaven forbid, Morgan teased. Besides, she's the mother of my child, Clint continued. So I can't, not be with her, even if I wanted to. Do you want to? Morgan asked, and the sincerity in his voice made Clint curious enough to look at him. Of course, he answered in confusion. I love my wife. Why would you ask me that? Because you think she saved you from Xandra and jumped into bed with her real fast, and rebounds don't normally last once the joy of being away from your ex fades. It's not been that long, Morgan explained. don't think that's what it is, Clint said to his empty glass, and added, By Theseus, I hope that's not what it is. Please, Morgan, I'm begging you, don't put negative shit in my head. I've barely got my shit together right now. I'm on the verge of cracking. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Morgan's tone grew solemn. What is wrong with you? Why has it been so bad lately? It's been talking to me a lot about Bruana. Clint turned and sat the glass next to Morgan's. It wants you to kill the baby? Clint. Look at me. Do not kill that baby. Morgan's eyes were panicked. No. Clint stared out at the garden through the window. No, it's not that. It loves Bruana. A lot. It is really attached to her, and I don't like it. I don't like it having strong emotions, if that makes sense. I want it to be dormant. That makes sense, but it's a hell of a lot better than what I thought. The thing usually demands bloodshed. It probably just likes Bruana because she's got your bloodline. It considers that its duty to protect your bloodline, Morgan explained, calmly, as he let his open palm rest on Clint's shoulder. But there was something in his voice, his eyes, the way that he held himself, that made it difficult for Clint to believe him. I think Bruana is a god, Clint said decisively. I don't think you're the first father to say something like that, Morgan shrugged. I mean it. They mean it too. That's how it feels to have something in your life that is important to you. Something that you can love and that will love you back for once. You know that Bruana loves you, right? You were her first word. Morgan squeezed his shoulder and took back his hand. I think she does, yeah. Clint sighed and turned to sink into the water up to his neck. But I'm not a good judge of shit like that. At all. She does, Morgan said confidently. I like that kid. I joke about stealing her from you, but you've been real jumpy lately. I would cut your head from your shoulders. Clint opened his eyes and stared directly into Morgan's. God damn, like that. That's what I wanted to avoid. Calm down. Morgan shuddered. Your eyes are glowing. You think it's because we finally agree on something? Clint asked, staring at the reflection of the light in the water as it pulsated from his chest and his eyes. I have no idea how that works. I told you not to touch it. Morgan refilled his glass, then cleansed, and shook the bottle. There were only a few swallows left, so he downed them. You drive me to drink. Randy says I drink too much, that she doesn't want Bruana to know that I'm a falling down drunk, Clint said into his freshly filled glass. Yeah, I mean, that's probably because you drink too much, and she doesn't want your kid to know that you're a falling down drunk. Morgan shrugged. But I don't know how you'd avoid that unless you quit. Maybe switch to something else? Like, I don't even know. You want to pass out, and I can't think of anything that won't make your heart stop. I don't have a heart, Clint reminded him. Is it that you don't have one, or is it that the stone is lodged inside one? Morgan asked, cocking an eyebrow. I don't know. Clint ran a hand over his chest. I've thought about cutting it open to find out, but every time I do, the goddamn armor pops up. I can't even cut through it with the sacred sword. Morgan swallowed, took a drink, and considered his words carefully. So, how many times did you try that, buddy? I don't know, Clint shrugged. A lot. I don't want it inside me. I can't get it out. He pressed on the place protruding from his chest, rubbed the spot for a few minutes, and, as an afterthought, added, It's bullshit. I told you not to touch it, Morgan said, because he couldn't think of anything else to say. That's real helpful, Morgan. Clint rolled his eyes. Thanks. They sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the hot water soothe their sore muscles, until Clint pulled himself onto the edge again. He seemed to want to do something, but swayed too badly to stand, lost his footing, and fell. Morgan scrambled quickly to catch him as he fell into the bath. The water was too shallow, and if he hit, he'd likely bust his head wide open. His magical abilities might heal him, but still, pain is bad, and he was acting on instinct. Clint scrambled, clinging to Morgan's shoulders in a death grip as they both went underwater for a second, before Morgan surfaced and sat him on his feet. "God damn it!" he hissed, parting the curtain of his hair and trying to pull it back away from his face. "Sorry, I slipped." Clint covered his face with his hands. "I don't know what's wrong with me." "How much have you had to drink today?" Morgan asked, wringing out his hair. "If you lose count, that's too much." "Don't yell at me! You've been shoving it down my throat." "No one shoves anything!" Morgan cut himself off and threw up his hands. "Clint, I'm not having this conversation. Open your mouth and say, 'Thank you, Morgan, for catching me before I split my goddamn skull open.'" "I do appreciate that. Thank you, Morgan. But I wouldn't have busted my skull open. If it was actually going to hurt me, the armor would have sprung up." Clint tried to climb out again, and Morgan put a hand on his shoulder. "Stay. I'll get some towels and I'll walk you to your room. Wait." He looked down at Clint. "You're saying that thing knew I was going to catch you?" "Yeah." Clint shrugged, looking at the floor. "It trusts you." Morgan shook his head and climbed out of the bath.